Good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this May 4th version of AM Live on EOA, your connection to Eastern Oregon. We're also on Roku. Glad you're here with us. How are you, man?
Morning. First Friday.
First Friday.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
Unfortunately.
They all just kind of run together, don't they? Yeah.
It's
So
at least it's nice weather. It's supposed to hold out a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's going to get bad. It's going to go back to crap weather here in a couple of days.
Is it?
It's from what I understand. I don't know. We don't have a weather man anymore.
I know. We miss you, Gabe. I know he tunes in.
I would even take Grapple right now if I have Gabe.
You want to do sports?
Let's do it. LHS baseball beat Ontario yesterday 12-1, 14-0 to sweep the season series from the Tigers. Since being swept by Pendleton, LeGrand baseball's 4-0, outscoring their opponents 55-3 in the last 4 games.
Wow.
But they were playing Baker in Ontario. I mean, that's like those are expected, especially in baseball. The only team in our league that's going to give us problems is Pendleton, and that's both softball and baseball. LHS softball swept Ontario as well yesterday, 13-0, 10-0. They play host to Vail on Tuesday here, but the big games for softball and baseball are next Friday, the 12th, at 3 o'clock here. It's doubleheaders versus Pendleton, and that ends the GOL season for both of the teams. I think softball has a couple more games after that are non-conference, but the important games are next Friday, a week from tomorrow. Those are the ones
right here.
Baseball, we have to win them both, and otherwise Pendleton wins the league. I mean, we're making the playoffs regardless, but we have to win both of those to give ourselves a chance at winning the GOL.
Okay.
And those 2 losses to Pendleton over there were LeGrand's first losses in baseball in 2 years in the state of Oregon. I mean, to Oregon teams, which is crazy. Actually, in the state of Oregon, because both of our losses in the last 2 years, one was in Idaho and one was in Arizona to a team from Colorado. So, man, that's going to be a dogfight on Friday. I honestly, so I'm going to predict we win one and lose one.
Okay.
And I hate to say that, but I think that Pendleton's tough, and they really are. They have, and they don't even have their best player. Their best player had Tommy John surgery, Easton Corey, and then he's committed to Oregon State, and they won't let him pitch. Oregon State's like, no, you're coming here. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to hurt your arm. He had Tommy John surgery, and if he wants to, if he wants to go to Oregon State and play baseball on a full ride, guess what?
What
he
kind
does
of surgery
what they tell
did you
him.
say?
Tommy John, it's your elbow.
Oh, okay.
And it's his throwing arm. But Peyton Lambert, their other number one, he shut us down the last time we faced them. So we'll see. It's going to be tough. EOU softball plays UBC tomorrow morning, UBC being University of British Columbia, at 9 a.m. in Klamath Falls in the opening round of the CCC tournament. And like I said, I think this is a double elimination tournament, but I think we have to win at least one game in this tournament to get in that large bid. So we have to win tomorrow, I would say. And I mean, on the high end of things, you win the tournament, you don't have to worry about it. You're in. On the low end of things, that would be winning one game and then hoping to get in on a at-large bid. But I think because of the conference that we play in, our record, we should get in with a win tomorrow against UBC.
Cool.
Yeah. Doug Trask Memorial Tournament's this Saturday, 10 o'clock. There's still openings for people to play if they want to. It's $100 a person, $400 a team. There's prizes. It's being catered. It's for a great cause. It provides 2 $1,000 scholarships at LHS and 2 $1,000 scholarships to high schools in the Valley for athletes, 1 male, 1 female. And the scholarship applications are rolling in. I got a stack of them on my desk right now, but I don't even look at those. We hand those off to some other people.
Somebody else that helps make.
Yeah, in the first year we did.
Yeah.
Not ever doing that again. No, because I know you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like I
yeah.
can't do it. It's too much pressure.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't do it,
It's
really.
like
I mean,
it's like reffing your kid's game.
yeah, I think it's worse. I'd rather ref my kid's game than decide who, out
Yeah.
of 10 people, and I know 10 of them,
Right.
and I
yeah.
know 10 of their parents,
Yeah.
who gets a scholarship. No, I'd rather just people that don't even
Yeah.
know them, just look at the paper and
Yeah.
decide based on a point system that Dana and I put together.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. It's all for sports.
All right. Good stuff. Thank you. So hey, let's look at weather out there. It's I don't know, what was it today, this morning? Let me see if I can find the graphic I uploaded. This is always, so this is the weather for today. No, that's not the weather for today. Sorry, guys. So 51 today.
Is the high? No, it's 51 when you printed that.
Is that what I did?
It has to be. The
So
high
74 today.
74.
You're right. Okay. So still going to be pretty nice.
Yeah, but look at tomorrow. The high is 49 and it's raining. Oh, it's supposed to rain today too.
Yeah. It looks like the whole weekend is supposed to. I mean, it's not nice until again, like
here we go again.
next Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be in the it's not going to hit 50 tomorrow, 58 on Saturday. Oh, no.
Oh, you love that. I tell you, if you want
supposed to have a golf tournament Saturday.
Yeah. If you want to hear Kyle complain, just mess with the weather.
Yeah, make it cold and rainy.
Oh
and
man,
crappy.
He gets.
You want the coldest I've been in a long time though was that football game over in Gresham. I don't know. The wind must have been the state playoff game.
Right. I'm trying to remember. I wasn't there.
It was blowing off the river.
Right.
Because the river's right there.
Yeah.
And it was probably like in the 30s, but it felt like it felt way colder than that.
Yeah,
and
I remember.
The wind was just
I was watching that on.
It was miserable.
Watching that online, yeah.
And we played like crap too. So on top of it, like it was just miserable on top of miserable for me. That was not.
So, yeah, those poor guys. I don't know if they came home that night or what, but
no, they came home.
Yeah. So being cold, losing a game, and then coming home.
They have it a lot easier than we had it when I was their age. These guys, they stay over a lot. When I was in high school, we played in the toughest to travel conference in the whole state, which was the 4 Central Oregon schools: Pendleton, Hermiston, LeGrand. We would leave like early on a Friday morning, right? Drive all the way to Bend, play a football game in the snow, and then have to come back that same night. So 9-10 o'clock, get back on the bus after you froze for 2.5 hours and drive all the way the 6.5, 7 hours back to LeGrand.
Yeah.
Get home 4 o'clock in the morning.
That'd be miserable.
It was terrible. It really was. It was not fun because you after being cold, you get on that warm bus and you're cramping up and it was not very fun. Those trips were terrible.
Uphill both ways.
I mean, the difference between then and now, I think, is the sports are a little bit better supported now. Yeah, honestly, in LeGrand.
I think so too.
I think they just get more financial support.
More and it kind of, I can't remember when was it that they started the boosters. You know, I mean, they started raising funds outside.
Yeah, we didn't have a booster when I was.
Yeah, right, and things really kind of changed then. You know, when
things really changed when we dropped down to 4A, because we were in 4A when I was in high school, but that was the highest level in the whole state.
Okay.
We were the second smallest 4A school in the state behind Hermiston, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it's really hard to compete when you have 600 kids going to your school and you're playing against a team that has 2,200.
Yeah.
Because they're drawn from So when we dropped down to 4A, we became the big dogs of 4A, one of the biggest schools in 4A, and we started winning more.
Yeah.
And that helps when it comes to getting money.
Yep. All righty. So, as you all know, I had a full knee replacement surgery. It's been just a little over 2 weeks ago. Grand Ronde Hospital Therapy and Sports Medicine and specifically Greg Dombeck has been helping me with that recovery. And here's just a little report. I'm going to be doing a report every couple weeks, and here's the first report from that recovery. Hey, I just got done with my therapy this morning with Greg Dombeck, who is the therapist here from Grand Round Hospital Therapy and Sports Medicine. And I am recuperating from a knee surgery that I had about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that we're trying to accomplish is to get full range of that joint, not only in the sense that you can extend it, but then also that you can bend it this way like you normally would your knee. And those two motions are measured in one manner or another. So right now, when I extend it this way, I'm about at the 8 degree. So it's not quite flat. I'm at the 8 degree measurement. And then when I bend my knee the other way, it's a little less than 90 degrees. So it's like 88 or 89 degrees. So the 90 degrees are good. That 90 degree mark is something they're trying to get to within a fairly quick period of time. And then to be able to flatten my knee is important also, because with knee surgery, if you do not get that taken care of, if you do not keep those tendons stretch out, then down the road it can be very complicated to get them to be stretched out. When you have knee surgery, they get you up the very first day. I mean, within a few hours of having the knee surgery, I was up and walking on it, and you can bear as much weight as you can. I mean, that's the measurement, but it's painful to do so. I'm doing okay. I'm doing 2 therapy sessions a week with Greg, and he is very patient, and as much as I can, even though it's painful, I'm enjoying my experience. So appreciate Grand Round Hospital and their therapy and sports medicine department, and particularly Greg for helping me in this progress. I'll keep you updated as we go along. All right. That is painful. I tell you, it's been a little bit. I mean, I know you've experienced those joint surgeries in the past and stuff like that, but
I don't like it either.
No, it's
the PT part's the hard part.
Yeah, and it's been a journey, and it's kind of like you really have to have some drugs on board to tolerate the physical therapy, but at the same time, you're trying to get away from painkillers and stuff. So
with my ankle, I did but then with my shoulder, I only took painkillers for 2 days, and then I was like, I'm done with these, because they were making that nod off. I felt like I was a heroin addict.
Yeah.
So I was like, no more of this.
All right. Well, so hey, this morning we have George Mendoza with us this morning. Glad that you're here with us. George is the superintendent for LeGrand School District. And how you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'm always okay.
Good. Always okay?
I'm always not too here, not too there, just somewhere there.
Yeah.
Trying to get this way.
And I don't think I've ever seen you too wound up. You do a pretty good job, but I think we talked about this once before, how there was a time in your younger life when you had to work at being zen cool.
Yeah, I would say I grew up with 3 brothers, and we would fight a lot, and I was a middle child, so I was pretty competitive and always wanted to win, and didn't like it if my little brother got something or beat me at something, and then of course I had to beat my big brother, and my default is probably to win at all costs. And I think I learned, though, as I grew up and as I played sports and as I worked with others, that the right thing to do is to collaborate, is to listen, is to understand, is to work together, is to be supportive, and is to not be a jerk. And I would say I felt at times that I was a jerk, and I learned that it's better to just listen and try to do things together. And I found that was like the better side of me.
Yeah.
And there you go. Just more that way.
Well, good. So so then part of your preparation for this job was being a middle child of three brothers.
Well, that at least got the competitive side to happen, and then the other sides of teams and working with teams really taught me about being, a shared decision maker, being a collaborator, and being more team oriented towards common goals.
Now, how much age difference was there between you and your brothers?
I had a brother that was about 2 years older than me,
Okay.
and then another brother that was a year younger than me.
Oh, wow. Did you guys ever play sports together?
All the time outside in the grass or with other kids.
Yeah.
And whether it was basketball or football or baseball or anything, or marbles,
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was competition.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, hey, glad you're here with us. We're wanting to talk about all things LeGrand School District and, how things are going. And I guess let's start with probably the most, there's a lot of good things and we'll get to those, but the most relevant thing is board elections are right around the corner, right?
Yeah.
And you have some board members going off, some open positions. I don't know, maybe talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, board elections are taking place. I believe the election cycle somewhere mid-May where the elections are over. I'll start out with two board members that are for sure not going to run. Mm-hmm. So Joe Justice is one of them. He moved into Island City area, and so he's not running. And Robin Maley, they're both longtime board members. And I would just say the work that Joe has done in support of bonds or in support of facility upgrades. In general, Joe has been one of the most strategic board members I've ever met. Just great at decision making, great at thinking about problems and solutions, and the way bureaucracy works, the way systems work and processes work. So he's just super smart, super talented, cares about kids, cares about our school district. And like I said, probably one of the most strategic board members I've ever known in the state of Oregon. So he was a blessing to our school district. He'll be a person that I hope to have as a lifelong friend and somebody that I'll ask questions of at different times related to a variety of things that come my way or the district's way. And then Robin Maley was our board chair for 2 years during COVID. And she was also a vice chair for 2 years. I believe she served at least 8 years, maybe a little bit longer as a board member, also part of all the facility upgrades and the many good programs and services that we put in place. Just a very supportive human, probably one of the most involved board members in our school district. She would attend events and activities and go to meetings upon meetings that we had. I don't care if it was food or health or wellness or math, whatever it might be. She was one of the board members that would come to our events and listen and support and add input and just help us in her presence, and then help us through questions that she asked and helping us to make the right decisions as well. A great leader, a great friend, a good person. People will probably never know the depth of how much she cared about or how much she does care about LeGrand and LeGrand School District. So very thankful for her. And then, so Merle Comfort is running for a position. He does have opposition. There's a variety of people that are running. And the reality is it's good. It's good that we're getting folks to run for the school board, and that they care about students, and that they care about staff, and that they care about the community and the future of LeGrand School District.
And we just came through an election cycle from the city council. I think there were 4 positions that were turned over, and I record all of those meetings, so I'm informed at what happens there. Honestly, I've never been to a school board meeting ever, but I think that, there's sometimes that people end up, I don't know, I would say, and this is the same thing for the city council too. Probably 60 or 70% of the people who start running, they start running because they're unhappy or they have an axe to grind or but part of it is they just don't understand the system. They don't understand, and I couldn't tell you the first thing involved with being a board member. So I guess the question I would have is like, if somebody were going to run down the road for, I mean, it's like, well, I really would want to get, how would you suggest they prepare to be an informed board member?
That's great. I would just say, in general, board members in a variety of boards too, not just school boards, but board members focus on goals or the vision of a school district. So the goals and the strategies and the vision of a school district, and that usually happens through, for us, like a strategic plan, or they just have goals, which could be improving reading or improving math or improving communication. But typically for our board, it's our strategic plan is our board goals. So there's goals or vision. Then there's governance, which is leading through those goals, leading through those visions, asking for updates on achievement, asking for updates on any kind of thing that we collect outcomes, graduation rates, and monitoring those goals and supporting that. Then there's policy. So policy is also part of what board members do. They want to make sure that we're following policies, or we're creating policies when necessary. If we don't have a process or we don't have a system to follow, then they will ask us to look at policies and ensure we align to those or create them. So the governance side, the policy side, and the governance, I'll just say is goals and policy, but goals and vision and direction. But the last one is fiduciary. They have to look out for our funding and that we are spending our funds in alignment to our goals, or spending our funds in alignment to what the state has dictated that we spend towards. So the reality is the goal side, the policy side, and the financial side is really the big picture of what board members should be doing. If they get too involved in the day-to-day, then that's really like micromanaging, and that's not healthy for any kind of culture. The reality is I'm the only employee of the board. The board really only hires and fires a superintendent. The rest is done through the superintendent, where I'm responsible for HR. I'm responsible for day-to-day operations. I'm responsible for supporting with what we do with curriculum instruction, assessment, and so on, safety. And what happens through that is that they can communicate with me, and they can question tactics, or they can question strategy, or they can question operations, but it really is conversations with me or working at the board level to influence change. The reality is, great board members should be focused on learning and how kids are doing in learning, reading and math,
Right.
PLCs, good tier 1, good core instruction. Do we have small group interventions? Do we have even one-on-one systems where we help kids? So good school boards should focus on learning, and then they should focus on outcomes. And that really is those strategic plan. How are we improving safety? How are we improving learning and math? How are we improving reading results? How are we increasing graduation rates? How are we helping out with behavior? How are we making sure that 9th grade kids are on track? Like, they should be looking at outcomes. And the last one is collaboration. They should be collaborating with each other. They should be collaborating with our staff. They should be collaborating with our families. They should be collaborating with me, all towards the goals that we set. So it's really about learning, outcomes, and collaboration that boards should focus on, while staying up high with the goals of the district, the policies of the district, and the fiduciary responsibilities of the district.
Okay. And I follow all that. So parents, when something comes up, and I know you deal with this. So, the point where the point normally where a parent or a grandparent or somebody is involved is they're unhappy in some manner or not. I mean, and that's just generally in life that, if you're not hearing anything, you might not be getting any affirmation, but you're not dropping the ball, and I've run sound my whole life, and done AV and stuff. And if people are not turning around and looking at you, you're doing a good job, So then how does, let's say a parent, did you hear about the school doing this, or the sports program doing this, or whatever that thing might be, where do they insert themselves?
Great question. I would say we always have, we have policies on complaints. whether they're just standard public complaints, or if they feel their child's being discriminated upon, there's complaints for discrimination, there's staff complaints. There's a variety of complaint processes. And it always starts, if they want to be very formal, they can do a complaint form and fill it out, and then we go through that. But they all start first at the informal level, just communicating with the teacher or the coach or the principal, whoever they're not happy with or what they want to understand better.
Right.
And then they just talk to that person, and hopefully there's a resolution. Hopefully there's an outcome where they feel satisfied. But if not, then they can get to the next level. So if it was not happy with the teacher or the coach, then in talking to that teacher coach, they can get to the principal and then talk to the principal about the situation. And, hey, I talked to XYZ teacher or XYZ coach, and that didn't go the way I wanted, or whatever it might be. And then the principal can get involved, and they can fact find, and they can investigate, and they can determine an outcome or a resolution. And then if the parent's still not satisfied, then they can go to the district office, which either could be me or Scott Carpenter or Erica Pinkerton, depending if it's special ed, or depending if it's curriculum, or depending if it's harassment or discrimination. And so then they'll get to work at somebody at the district level. And then we have to see what took place at the building level, from the teacher or the coach to the principal, and monitor and review their process and get into our decision making. And if they're still not satisfied, then they can get to the board, and then have the board oversee their complaint. And then the board can decide if the school district has resolved it adequately or not. And then if they're still not happy, they can go to the Oregon Department of Education and indicate that they've gone through the process and they haven't found resolution. So that's what happens sometimes. So people can do that. The reality, though, is I always tell our folks, like, do the best that you can to resolve the complaints at your level. Listen, find reasons to say yes. I also say try to make it feel that parents get 51% of the say, unless people are not being reasonable. And when I say that, it means like they're asking us to do things that we can't do. We have to always follow our laws. We have to always follow our policies. We have to follow what's written in our handbooks and guidebooks, and we need to stay close to that. Of course, I want us to find middle ground and see what we can do to support people. But I also feel like if people are asking us to do things that fundamentally school districts don't do, then we have to basically say we can't do that and explain why. But try to give what we can do, and try to help them work, understand that and work with them there.
Good. So let's go back to the school board for a minute, because I just see this disconnect between people who are unhappy, and especially in the age of social media. And I say all this. We live in a really blessed area. You are my personal friend. Kyle and I were joking the other day. It's like the last 3 shows have been education in some manner or not. It was Scott Carpenter, and then Tim Seidel was here on Tuesday, and you're here today. So
no, Brett Baxter.
Brett Baxter. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so, I'm a big supporter of public education. So, and I think we're in a really blessed area. And when people come to me and they're unhappy about something, it doesn't matter if it's the city or if it's the school or whatever it is. It's like, hey, we live in an area that's influenceable. Your voice can be heard. You can be involved. You can serve on a board. You can serve on a committee. So
you're right.
But at the same time, you are really well aware of the west side of the state versus the east side of the state. And the governor is actually going to be in town today, which is good, because we don't get governors coming to Eastern Oregon very often. So that's awesome. But and then especially during COVID, we saw this west side pressure that didn't necessarily culturally fit us. And then, in the middle of that social media, then you have parents that are concerned, and not necessarily at our boards, but there's videos all over the place where parents are confronting the board in some manner in a very aggressive way. But the disconnect is that might not be the place for them to insert themselves. Right. because I don't know. So talk about that a little bit. Talk about that
there's
whole
a
thing.
lot. There's a lot to what you just said from my perspective. I would just say in general, state control versus local control, or state decisions versus local decisions have always been something that folks worry about. Even myself, I don't like to be told what to do by others. I like to also make decisions on my own and collect data and evidence and then move forward without having somebody always say it has to be like this. But the reality is we've gone through some polarized politics, I think. And we also went through a pandemic, and there was things that people have done that have brought in viewpoints at times and created big gaps. And the reality is that makes it harder to make all the right decisions. And for school districts, we've always had to follow, rules and laws and policies, and we've always had things where we had to do education based on state law, or we had to follow state practices based on Oregon Health Authority. I mean, we've never not had rules where we didn't have to. So we've always had to do that. And I think that folks have said, you're not listening or you don't hear me. The reality is we do listen and we do hear, but we still have to follow rules and laws that we have to follow, whether that is wearing a mask or whether that is teaching a class or teaching a course based on standards that are adopted by the state and the curriculum that gets selected by our committees. Like, we still have to follow those types of things. And when people say you're not listening, it's really that we are listening, but we still have, guidelines and rules that we follow. And I still feel like people get involved or feel like that because there's, the local choice. They'll have local choice because they get to help us to adopt our curriculum. People do help us to develop our strategic plan. The board does decide if they're going to adopt the goals or the vision or the direction that the strategic plan has. There's a lot of input and decision making that's made based on choices that our community has. Parents can choose if they want to do online school. Parents can choose if they want to do a hybrid online and in person. Parents can choose if they want to take their child out of school. Parents can choose if they want to have students not participate in a club sport or activity. Parents can choose if they don't want their child to participate in state testing. Parents can choose if they don't want their child to not go on a field trip. Parents can choose if they don't want their child to be in sex ed. Like, there's so many choices that people have.
It's been that way.
And it's been that way for a long time. So that's the reality. And then you have to sometimes say to people, like, you do have choices. It might not be that that's the choice, this rule or this rule is not the choice you want us to follow. But the reality is, if I don't follow this rule, then it becomes problematic too, from whether it's OSHA or BOLI or ODE or Office of Civil Rights or Department of Justice. I have to follow our rules, and I have to also look at, what do we have in our collective bargaining agreements? What do we have in our policies as well? And stay pretty close to that. And I think sometimes, I want people to understand that. I mean, to me, it'd be like, understand that there's a lot of complexity or a lot of nuance to things. But we really do want people to feel like we listen to them and care about what they have to say. And if they want to influence, they can influence state senators or state representatives or the governor, or get involved and be a board member and get on committees that influence policy and decision making. They can do those things too. And they can always still make their own choices for their child.
Good. Thank you. And I have to say that I've been involved in organizations, and sometimes as a customer or whatever it might be, you might not know the exact right question to ask to get the answer that you really want, And there are times that I've talked to an administrator not in the school district, and I'm trying to say, you guys are not this way, and I appreciate this. It aggravates me when they specifically answer the question that I'm asking, knowing that it's not going to get me the answer that I need. Where I always appreciate it when because that is the thing with complex systems, is you might not know the exact question. And so I always appreciate it when I'm talking to somebody and they say, I think the question that you're really asking is, and to get to, and I guess the point is I've always found the school district very helpful to to know how to ask the right question,
Mhm.
rather than just saying, no, they didn't ask the right question, and so we're going to stonewall them and not
Yeah.
give them the information they need.
Yeah.
That I think that's disingenuous. It's
Mhm.
not real. I mean, it's a form of lying when it comes right down to it.
Mhm.
So, but I've never experienced that with the school district, and I really appreciate that. Really appreciate that from you guys. So how are we doing? I mean, you beforehand you mentioned graduation rates are up, and I'm sure that part of that is in referring to getting over COVID, getting over kids not being in classroom. I don't know. Talk about that a little bit.
We had around 69%. Some of it was some errors that we made in our calculations, but also likely not having enough systemic communication and conversations and accountability structures. During COVID, we were really just focused on kids in school and making sure they had a good experience. And some of the kids that would leave, we didn't necessarily always follow up and try to get them back. I think they did communicate, but it was a time too where we lost some of our accountability structures with truancy. Truancy laws went away about 1.5 years ago. So there wasn't citations that you could do, or there's no real teeth except telling people that they're not going to graduate or they're not going to pass their class. And so once we got those rates that we saw last school year, it really became like, we need before school tutoring, we need after school tutoring, we need tutoring during the school day. So we added a 0 period, and we added an 8th period, and then we added a tutor me program, and then we also added tutoring, got teachers to work in our study skills labs in 0 period and 8th period. And then we had a lot more accountability meetings with parents and kids based on whether they're on track to graduate or whether they're on track in 9th grade or 10th grade or their junior year. So we put in a lot more green zone, yellow zone, and red zone type systems where we would know who the kids are and then work with those kids, communicate with those kids, and then communicate with those families, and then also put kids into 0 periods or put kids into 8th period and then give them study skills type classes too, so that they could advance in their credits. So we did that quite a bit this school year, and we should be, I've been told, anywhere near 87 to 91% graduation rate for this school year.
That's good.
So that's a significant change,
Right.
and that's something that I think, when I think about our staff, I think about Brett Baxter, I think about our counselors, I think about Scott. I asked for a lot of work to be done, and then I put a lot of pressure for things to happen. But everybody also wanted the same thing. They also want kids to graduate, and they also want schools to be successful. And so we put in a lot of systems, and that labor is going to be showing up pretty soon. And same thing, I asked Scott for an update on how we're doing with reading achievement, math achievement, state testing. And Scott gave me an update yesterday, and we were exceeding the state average in everything.
Good.
From 3rd grade all the way to high school.
That's awesome.
So, and to me, the big thing is we live in a town, we live in a place where I expect, and I believe our parents expect, and I believe our board expects, and I believe our community expects that we exceed the state average in everything.
Right.
And that was part of our strategic plan up until the end of this year, that we exceeded the state average in everything. Yeah. And right now we're doing that.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's just pivot and talk about some of the cool things that you like bragging about the school district. I mean, so when you rub shoulders with other superintendents outside of the area and they're not aware of what's happening here, what do you tell them?
Oh, I don't know. There's so many things that we do brag about at times, or at least we say what we're good at. So, yeah. Dodgy with sports. I don't know of any other school district that has 15 state championships in the last 6 years, even counting COVID, which you didn't get to count. And there was times where we had likely the best wrestling team, or likely the best baseball team, likely the best softball team.
We win state championships in all 3 of those sports during COVID, if there's seasons.
Yeah. So we could have had 18 or 19 state titles.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you have that, it's good for us to to recognize that there's a lot of parents, there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of coaches, and there's a lot of people moving in the same direction with lots of discipline, lots of hard work, lots of effort, and lots of dedication to that sport, to that team, and to that winning culture. And it just doesn't happen by luck. Like it's a lot of practice, a lot of skill development, and a lot of high-level competition that gets you ready for that moment. Sometimes I'll give little speeches, and it's like everything's important. So practice is important. That first game is important. That district title game is important. That playoff championship game is important. The state title game is important, but everything is important. And if you think of it that way, then you can rise to that level in the state championship and be ready, because everything you've done is important, and it's just the next game. And we have a lot of folks with the mentality of doing the right things to get their kids prepared. And it does start with great parents, great kids, great coaches, and a lot of community support. You were saying something earlier, and it's like about the money that's been raised, and we have great boosters and great folks that support our school
Great
district.
parents.
All of it. But our school district has paid, in my time alone, we've increased the sports athletic budget by more than $100,000 a year.
That's crazy.
For us to be able to add teams, pay for the travel, pay for the competitions. As I'll just say, as winning goes up, costs go up too. Things have, and so we're one of the most competitive 4A programs in the state. And there's
By
that
far.
OSAA
Cup.
Oregon Cup,
Yep.
and in my time we've been third place to first place every year, out of about 45 4A high schools.
Wow.
So we're pretty good. I love it. We don't even get into a choir that often.
Right.
Probably Kevin Durfee and Cassie Durfee, but Kevin Durfee is,
many
the
state
best.
championships.
That's the best winning program we got, and
Right.
people don't always realize that it's our
Right.
choir program that is like the monster. And if you ever go to their concerts, I cry.
Right.
There's times where like they bring out the emotion. You just like melt at times
Right.
with some of the songs that they sing, and how beautiful it is for people, kids to show their talents and skills. And then for us to see, like, if you really want to see great education, watch Kevin Durfee teach a class.
Right.
And if you really want to see great student learning, watch how these kids respond. Of course, I want to see that for math, and I want to see that for reading. I want to see that for everything. But, I'll just say we've got some really great humans in LeGrand and in our school district, and I get to see that.
Well, and a lot of this happens. Sports happens and music happens because you have multiple generations of people, who, I'm thinking in the choir world, Michael Frazier had a tremendously strong program for minute, very similar to Durfee, and so and then Verl Miller in the wrestling area. We're talking 30 or 40 years of history that these programs now are. They're very good, but they're standing on the shoulders of those programs that have gone on for a long time.
Clell is the perfect example of that for Verl. I've gotten to know Verl through Clell, and how Clell does things is a copy of what he learned from Verl, and both are beautiful men. I would just say too, Dodsey, this is a good one, good factoid. I don't know if you knew this. So Alma Crow, State Coach of the Year, cross country.
Parker McKinley,
Clell Carson.
Yeah, and then Dalton Sheets and Williams, assistant.
Yeah. These are all like 5 people out of LeGrand that probably I don't know if there's going to be 10 or 12 different kinds of Coach of the Year awards coming from LeGrand School District this year.
Well, and all of those are state champs too. Alma Crow, Clell Carson, Parker McKinley.
Yeah.
All 3 won state champs.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we've got some good coaches.
Well, and
great people.
And the influence of those extracurricular type activities that people might not get is the culture that is created that those kids are invested in. So in other words, I've spent some period of time investigating and trying to figure out if there's some things that we can help kids that slip through the cracks, starting at the junior high or even starting at the end. Like we don't, and you and I've talked about, we don't really have an official non-drug program that starts in the elementary age, and a lot of those decisions are being made, in their 4th, 5th, 6th grade years, but the other programs that we have, choir and sports, that is the program. All of those kids have an identity. They're involved in something that is bigger than their academics, which is, at the end of the day, if the school district isn't doing academics, then they've failed miserably. But the other side of that is creating this environment that kids can identify with. I am a sports person, or I'm a choir person, or whatever it is. And that leads them to connect with a group of people that is a positive influencer in their lives. The kids that slip through the cracks are the ones that don't have those connections in some manner. And so then the value of those extracurricular activities, given that we win championships, that's a bonus, but it changes the entire climate of our community in an immense positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Love what you had to say. Made me think. We do have like Go ASAP. We do have certain programs, but I'm hearing you in that sense of we really need to see what more we can do for kids that aren't in sports or aren't in choir or band. And we do have, fiddle club. We have all kinds of other. We have chess club. We have Lego robotics. We have lots of things, but and we have some level of after school, but not enough. And it would be good and we have mentoring. I don't know if you know that we have students from EOU athletes that come into our elementary schools, and they go to recess, and they also go to lunch, and they mentor our students, and they're like a buddy program. But an after-school, at-risk youth type thing is a growth area.
Well,
for
and
us.
we don't, Youth for Christ does a tremendous job, but it's a little bit siloed in the sense that they serve a particular group of kids. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of kids that take advantage. But the point is, we don't have a boys club. We don't have a boys and girls club. We don't have a YMCA. We're missing some of those things that maybe were critical in our past, or that traditionally have been important to kind of collect those kids that don't have connections in some manner. We really don't have that. We don't have a community athletic center, which again is one of the things that would draw kids like that. Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's one of the answers. And I've talked to Scott and Cody about this, and I know that there's conversations about, getting something going.
Yeah, Katia Chambers is doing some good work.
So, but no, good stuff and the wonderful activities.
I would say real fast then, Bond is going great, seismic grant going great, HVAC and getting more HVAC at the high school, and working at the middle school is going great. Tiger House is going great.
Explain what Tiger House is, because that's unique.
That's our CT home construction program. We're now in that phase 3 final class, which is building a Tiger House, working in partnership, working with Gus Chachis as the first general contractor. Parker McKinley is the teacher. He's going to learn to be a general contractor throughout this time, and then do the on-site work in support of roofing and doing the woodwork. He won't do the roofing, and our kids won't do the roofing, but we'll hire subcontractors for that. But our kids now getting involved in the building of a house. Building of a house, townhouse actually.
Okay.
So we're going to have that start next school year. Hopefully that townhouse will be built by the end of the school year. Working on some potential land purchase acquisitions that are private-public partnerships. Getting involved with building that Tiger House for Grand Ronde Hospital, seeing if it can be built for them. They want to have support for their staff housing as they get physicians and folks that want to move into the area. I'm going to actually meet with the governor today with Gust, and we're going to actually talk about potentially building staff housing for not just our staff, but also for EOU and Grand Ronde Hospital as future cottages and seeing and potentially going for a grant. Now, these are all, I'm saying the word potential because it's not firmly decided. The things that I've shared with Gus before is if we really do get this infrastructure grant, then we'll be playing around with what we can do for a land purchase. But the infrastructure grant has to be there because that's what pays for moving the dirt. That's what pays for putting in the roads, putting in the sewer and the electrical. And that costs a lot of money. So it's one thing to be able to buy land, which likely the district would potentially do if the board agreed. But the next part is moving the dirt and putting in the infrastructure, and that costs a lot more. And if we don't get this grant, then for us, it's not a good decision for us because we don't have the money to just pay for the infrastructure as well.
Yeah.
So there's stuff that's going on. We're like Scott and Teresa Dowdy and Justin created their own drug course for fifth graders that replaced the DARE program, which is getting known region-wide and potentially statewide. There's so many things that we wind up doing that other school districts don't do.
Good.
The Tiger Home construction, not many people do. If we actually do the staff housing, not many school districts do staff housing. And if we do it for up to 20 or 30 staff members, whether EOU or hospital or our school district, nobody does that in the state. Like there's so many, I could just get into, there's a lot of things that we're doing that most people aren't doing, but we're trying to play. We're trying to see what we can do to make things better. What I'm most proudest of is at our core, we're about learning at our core.
And that was going to be my next.
Our
question was, yeah. So what do you, when you get to the end of the day and it's like, yeah, we took a step in the right, I feel really good. What is that? What's that thing?
Well, right now it's like, I love that we're great at sports. I love that we have good CTE programs. I love that we're, have great choir program and music program. The band program was third place last year in state competition. This year they'll probably be first, second, or third. We got a great band. We had a great band teacher. But at the end of the day, I don't want us just to be known for a good program. I don't care if it's CTE, band, choir, or baseball. I want us to be great at reading and teaching reading. I want us to be great at math and teaching math. I want us to be great at PLCs and good core instruction and engaging
PLC?
Professional learning communities, which are vehicles for lessons and activities and assessments and data and doing something with that data to improve instruction, to improve learning. I want us to be great at teaching reading, great at teaching math, great at students learning, great at graduation rates, great at attendance rates. Yeah. Attendance matters more than anything. Most people don't realize, like, not only is it a good life habit to show up consistently, like that's how you learn reading, that's how you learn math, that's how you learn concepts and skills that are important. And when you're gone a lot, there's a lot of gaps.
Right.
And here in our community, we have a lot of people that don't attend regularly. They miss up to 10% of the school year. Wow. 10% is more than 17 days lost of school instruction.
Wow.
When you're missing 17 days out of 170 days, you're going to have gaps in your understanding for concepts and skills. And we got to get attendance to be better. I want us to exceed the state average in everything. I guess I'm built that way. And so I want us to be best known for high achievement in reading and in math, and best known for high graduation rates. So those are things for me that I'm pushing. I'm letting people know I'm really proud of us. We got a lot of great things, but right here has got to be our bread and butter.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So what's your hobby? What's the thing? Last question. What's the thing that you disconnect with?
I would say golf, number one, walking and going up the mountain, listening to audible books when I golf, listening to audible books when I walk, spending time with friends or loved ones, eating food. I'm kind of a...
Wait, you listen to audiobooks while you golf?
If I'm by myself.
Yeah, if you're walking, right?
Yeah, if I'm by myself.
You don't play it in the golf cart.
No, I'm walking. If I'm by myself, there's times where it's like, it's okay, I'll listen to my podcast, or it's okay, I'll listen to my audible book, and I'll golf and I'll have fun.
What's your handicap?
Probably 12, 13.
That's not bad.
Sometimes,
That's not bad.
sometimes I can get to a 9 or a 10. Sometimes I'm 15 or 16, but 12,
What's the
13.
strength of your game? Short game.
Consistency. I'm fairly straight.
That's really important.
I'm not though. Like if I worked on my chipping and putting, I could probably be
like a 7 or
a 8 or a 9. Yeah, I could be better with chipping and putting, especially chipping.
the hardest part of the game.
Yeah, I don't practice. I just show up a lot of times, and I just golf. But I would say this, because people talk about balance or work-life balance, and I would say I've adopted more of a love and appreciate every moment and have gratitude for that. So if I get to be with you guys right now, I don't look at that as like stress. I look at that as like I get to be with people I like or I care about. If I get to eat, I think of like I get to eat food that I want to eat, and I'm happy about that. If I'm with my wife or with my children, I think about like I'm so lucky to be with them and be next to them.
Yeah.
When I'm solving a problem with people, I think about like I get to work with them and try to understand and try to see what I can do to make things better.
You know what that's called? Having an attitude of gratitude.
Yeah.
That's makes life a whole bunch easier.
Yeah. And I enjoy the moments, every moment that I can enjoy.
And that's
find peace
hard
in
to
that.
do. It really is. I mean, it's hard to like, I say often that pets and grandchildren or little kids, they help you right now. I mean, they don't care what happened yesterday. They don't care what's going to happen an hour from right now, but it's really hard to just be right here and right now. It's tough. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
yeah. Well, George, thanks for being with us here. Yeah, really appreciate it. Really appreciate you spending the time. I didn't know for sure where the conversation was going to go, but I try and ask the questions that I know that others might be thinking about out there. And so, yeah, thanks so much for being open and being willing. So, you want to get us out of here?
Yeah, let's do it. There's not a lot today.
Okay.
Today, today's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Today's May the 4th. On this day in 1878, Thomas Edison's phonograph was shown for the first time at the Grand Opera House, 1878. This is a big gap because there wasn't a lot of cool things that happened on this day for some reason. 1992 on this day was when they sent the military in to stop the riots in LA, the Rodney King riots.
Wow.
1992 on May 4th, they said no more, like we're done with
Yeah.
this, and they sent the military in. 2022 on this day, the world's most dangerous drug trafficker, Colombian drug pin Dairo Antonio Usaga, is extradited to the U.S. for drug charges, international drug charges, which was a big deal. I mean, it was a long process. It took a long time to get him here. And then 2022 on this day as well, the U.S. Federal Reserve makes the largest interest rate increase since 2000, which was 0.5%, attempting to combat the fastest rate of inflation in over 40 years. Inflation was really bad in the last.
Well, and they just raised it another
gas
quarter.
went up again, and my paycheck didn't. That's what you see all over. There's all kinds of ads and memes. Oh, rent went up again, and my paycheck didn't. I'm like, weird. The number one movie in America 10 years ago, Iron Man 3, Robert Downey Jr. And then finally, quote of the day comes from Alexander the Great. I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. One more time. I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. Alexander the Great. Quote of the day.
Good stuff.
Yep.
Thanks, George.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.
Tuesday.
We'll see you right here.